This is outstanding. This is built in 1203. I want to get this roof and you can see how it's made, which is, you know, an unusual. This abbey was founded by the Trinitarians. This was a sect of monks that set up abbeys to befriend and help the captured from the Crusades, and also they set up hospitals. What I'm filming right now is the pigeonary. Pigeon was the cheapest food the monks could raise, and there's a hole in the top where the pigeons flew in and out of, and they kept them right in that round stone building.
And then ate them?
And then ate them. Mentions of the old Templar Church built in the late 13 AD near Galdino in lands given by the local chieftain, Dermot O'Delavan. The Knight Templars were one of the three great Christian military orders of the Middle Ages. Founded by Flemish and Burgundian knights in 1119 AD, they owed obedience only to the Grand Master of the Order of the Pope. On the night of Friday the 13th, October 1307, King Philip of France, backed by the Inquisitor, turned against the order, accusing it of heresy. Its leaders, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay, were tortured and burned and killed. Pope Clement issued a bill calling for the arrest of all Templars. At construction, there isn't any cement in it, has a thatched roof. It's just amazing. They just pile stone on top of stone.
You can sit down on it, and then I'll
In
put you
1692, William Cromwell brought an army and defeated most of Ireland, and then they set down a decree that said Catholics could not be head of any ministry. They could not conduct school. They could not. There was Catholicism was outlawed. Catholicism, yeah. And because of that, the faith then went underground, and they continued believing in it and teaching it. And here is a rock that Mass was held from. And of course, it was here, hidden, and that way Catholicism didn't disappear. It continued underground. Certainly the capstones characteristic of dolmens standing on three or more upright stone lakes could be have confirmed them as being tombs of great antiquity in which the remains were sometimes interred after cremation. Radiocarbon dating has suggested dates for some Irish dolmens. R stands on 5 uprights from rugged local limestone. Well, here's another version of a Celtic helm post just stuck in upright, and then they would use wattle to fill in the cracks. In this case, you know, mud and straw, and then a thatched roof on top. Now the one in Germany also has a thatched roof, so that seems to be a pretty standard type of roof. And then inside, there's overhead beams to hang things on. Okay, we're entering. This could be a crannog, could be a rath, but it's a Celtic homestead. Okay, a farm. And we'll see what else is in here. Now, some of this they've made copies of. In other words, what we filmed so far, some of it is original, some of it is replicated of what they found at archaeological sites. So we would have That must have been for the pigs, or the fish pond, or the well, or whatever. And then over here, see, we have some more huts with corral, and the typical Celtic was to put you know, a fence all around it. Okay, so just typical of, they made do with what they had, and this was, and some geese. How you doing, geese? Hi. Oh, good. Well, that's what I think of you too. Okay. So this is actually an actual archaeological site, and they've replicated the buildings that was found here. So we have a nice lake here, and on the back side we've got lakes all around us. Probably it was, yeah, I bet this was
The next homestead. All around the lake over
probably, this was all underwater where those trees are now. Well, this is a replication of a cooking site, and they have found these all over Ireland. What they would do is dig a pit, line it with wood and then clay so that it would hold water, fill it full of water, as much as 500 liters of water, which about, and then they would light a huge fire and put rocks in with the wood so that the rocks would get extremely hot. And then they would throw the hot rocks into the water until the water started to boil. And it's been proven by a demonstration that some college students did that they cooked a leg of lamb totally edible in about 35 minutes using this method. Stone that's found all over Ireland and Britain and Scotland. This one has the Ogden Alphabet on it, which are lines. I've talked about this before on another tape. Lines that are slanted either through a line running here, and you have them slanted. You can have them above the line just on one side, like here, or you can have them below, like down here. So each one of these represented an alphabet. There was 20, they had 20 letters to their alphabet, and it may take as many as 3 or 4 lines to make a letter, depending. So you had to, they believe they developed this alphabet after they made contact with Christianity and the Romans with their alphabet. Okay. Inside this round building is a little spring or a well, and certain springs were considered sacred by the Celts. Usually the Druids made them sacred, and they would hold initiation rites, religious gatherings, whatever. They believed that for your sacred water, the best way was to drink the water from a human skull that has been cleaned and made into a cup, especially if it was your worst enemy. Then the church changed these pagan beliefs, but the people wouldn't give up their sacred springs, so the church simply made them a holy well. And so now most of them they're associated with a saint. I don't know what the name of this one is. Saint does tell me over here. Well, it don't say. Now, Celts in their sacred springs, they would take a valuable object and throw it into the spring, or they may do a sacrifice, sometimes a human sacrifice. They put it in the spring, and that was to bring them good luck. And evidently, this tradition still carries down to us when we come to certain fountains. We have a wishing well, and we throw money in. So there's an old tradition that goes way back to the pagan times. Of the kiln. To get the kiln started, a horse rail of tough turf of good dry timber and a little coal dust was thrown into the kiln. Small stones were added that would bring the level of material up to where the tapered bottom ended. On top, which is up here where I'm at, on top of the stones, 3 wheelbarrows full of coom would be evenly spread. Then a layer of normal size stone. The successive layers of coom and stones was maintained all the way to the top. The thickness of the stone layer in the kiln got thicker towards the top, but the layer of coom remained the same, 3 barrels. They used the brick lining as a guide to proportions, which was 3 bricks of limestone to 1 of coom. When the kiln was burning good and hot, you could add layers of stone from 1 foot to 15 inches in thickness. You had to be careful that the kiln did not get too hot, then it would get stuck. The burning limestone of coom would attach itself to the sides of the kiln by fusion. This was usually associated with an inexperienced man feeding too much coom in one layer. So excessive heat was generated. This was known as braise. You know by the heat of the kiln when to keep back the coom. You just knew how much. Okay. Well, after the king was crowned in a coronation chair or on a big stone, he had a big party. And this is where they had the party. And they had the first party took a long time to get organized because they had to go to Florida to get the palm trees. But once they had the palm trees, then they always had a party here. Let's see if we got any fishes in the pond. Don't see any fishes. Well, they've made a nice garden. Little park. So it's nice. We got some roses trying to bloom. Although it's been a very cold June. Very cold indeed. Well, this is where the fort was. It's got a ring around it, a ditch all the way around it. It's the highest point between here and the coast in Limerick.
We came pretty high up. Look out there.
Okay, just a moment. So if I look out there, we have come up quite a bit. I'll show you the ditch they've dug. I don't know if you can pick it up, but there's a ditch in there. Looking on the other side of the bridge.
Receiving.
Well, this is called Craiganawan's Castle. And it was built 1550s. An Irish chief lived here. McNamara was his last name. They lived in it until, in fact, this is a typical example of a Gaelic fortified house, and the Irish kings would live in it. And they would live in these houses. They lived in these houses until 1650, when Oliver Cromwell came and decided to make them all Protestants, outlawing Catholicism. And this castle had all its battlements removed, its fortresses, its weapons, and left as a ruin. And now we get to go inside it. Just to look out. Oh, we're inside the castle. Not too much here. We're going up a spiral staircase. And you have these little rooms.
It's a very strange view, isn't it?
And in this door, and there's a bath with a toilet. Pretty strange. Well, this is evidently the dining room. And look out some of the windows. They have some ancient breed of cattle here too that I'm going to film, called the Kerry. So we get to go out to the Crannog. I think that's it right out there. This is Monday, 29th of June, and we've made it to the top of this square tower that was also a house. And here at the very top was where the bedroom was. So while it's pretty tall and it didn't really have a lot of room in it. Well, there's 2 rooms, the doors were locked. You can't go in. No?
You can do what you like. We'll go home to Mom, Deirdre. We'll be back in a while. We'll see if he's still alive. Just shout. Yes. Just shout.
So this is a Crannog, a man-made island.
Anyway, my name is Quavon the Keld, and that's my 2 beautiful daughters, Deirdre and Deirdre.
No?
I brought all my daughters, Deirdre, all ages and all from the same. So 3,000 years before computers. Well, that's what they told me anyway. And we would go into the lake and we would make these islands by putting trees in a big circle all the way around. And we'd fill them up with stones and rocks and bits of shrubs to basically make a kind of a desert island, as you can see. And then I'd build a perimeter fence all the way around here like this, by upright stakes and wattles we'd in and out and in and out. And after that was completed, then it would take anything from 3 to 6 months, Teresa. Because in Ireland sometimes we do get a little bit of rain, as you may have gathered from time to time, and not an awful lot. But because of this rain, I had to build a little house. And the walls of the house are very much like the walls of the perimeter fence, upright stakes and lots of wattles. And then we'd smear it with clay, mixed with straw and, flour and hair. Oh, thank you. I'll be doing a lot of repairs here today, which will help strengthen it. Now, there is a little clause, you see, in 3000 BC thing as a television. Or there is no WC or toilet or washroom, so if you get taken short, you'll have to exit that way in a hurry. You'll also notice that my roof is held up by these. And I'm going to tell you about them now, you see. A lot of people from your 20th century, you thought gravity was discovered by who? Newton, exactly, in 1666 when the old apple fell on his head. No, it wasn't. Gravity was discovered by me, Quavon the Celt, in 3028 BC when this roof fell down on me. 4 wives, 17 children, 3 sheep and a pig. First of all, we thought it was our enemies, the MacMurrows or them Oludas, come to kill us in our beds. But when all the smoke and...
That's an Irish word, and it means a road or a causeway, but it doesn't look like much of a road compared to the motorways nowadays. This is actually an Iron Age bog road. Now, the Iron Age, when was that? Well, first you had the Stone Age, and then following that you had the Bronze Age around 2000 BC, and then following the Bronze Age it gradually became the Iron Age as iron was slowly introduced into the country. And the island, Fia, means deer, so roughly it means the boiling place of the deer. Now these kind of boiling places, they date right back to the Bronze Age, and there is evidence of about 2,000 fullock fields around the country, so we know that they were extensively used. Now you might wonder why boil meat if you could roast it? Where did this boiling idea come from? Well, they probably roasted it more often because that's quick and it's easy. But the boiling thing probably for an alternative flavour. And the whole sort of tradition of boiling, you know, Irish stew and bacon and cabbage, that may have. Now it's quite a long process because the fire needs to be lighting for about 2 to 3 hours before the stones become hot enough. And you can see from these stones just how hot they must have been. Lime is even coming out through them. So when the stones are pushed down into the water, it causes the water to boil. And that's the fastest part of it because the stones retain the heat so well that the water takes only about 10 to 15 minutes to boil. So when the water is boiling, you'd have your animal here, you'd skin him for the coat for the winter. You'd wrap him in a straw rope called a sugan. Now you might have noticed the door of Quavon's house. It's a kind of a straw door. Did you notice that? The door of the crannog. Maybe, it might have been open, but it's done in a straw, and that's called a sugan. It's just straw twisted up. And this was used for many things, and one of the things was to keep the animal reasonably clean while they were cooking it. So, I mean, they may have used even a few wild herbs, who knows?
See. So we had much more efficient tools that were able to cut the stone much better than it, okay? So we were able to cut the stone for a while instead of wattle and all, okay? So that's what we used. But we still hadn't had chimneys for our houses at all. We still wanted the smoke to filter through the thatch and to kill our bugs and insects and everything, okay? That one over there is a hole in it because that was actually a forge. In the corner you can see the fire, okay? And we needed a hole for the smoke to go through and to build up the heat, okay? That's the only reason there's a chimney there. Now, the ring fort is simply a circular mound of stone, you can see, it's going all around with simply a wooden fence on top. And you can actually climb up there and you can actually watch out for enemies if you're ready with your spears. Okay? Now, this is the farmstead, okay? They would, in the night time, the parents would come, so they brought farming techniques and they brought crop rotation, they brought like, they brought goats and sheep and cows and everything. So during the day, all the cows would be out grazing the land and the sheep and plant a piece of wood, okay? So now your foot is planting the piece of wood like a vice. Your 2 hands are free to shave off the bark. Okay? Everybody get it? It's kind of hard to show. Then over here we have a pole lathe, or not a lathe is maybe. It simply turns the wood so you can carve it. So it's called a pole lathe because it's powered by the pole twined to the wood to the pedal. You press on the pedal and it turns the wood, okay? Then you get your tool and you carve it like that. And, what you'd make would be handles for weapons or tools, or maybe goblets, wooden goblets, okay? You wouldn't actually make furniture because you wouldn't have furniture. And, if anybody wants to go. I don't know what I'm making yet. I think I cut it to make 2 goblets out. You can just go wandering around yourselves and if you have any questions after that. Oh, look at this.
This boat sailed to America from Ireland. It's leather and wood.
This is the actual T7 boat that sailed from England to America in 1976. Yeah, it's basically what it is, a giant curl. You've probably seen. It's just basically a leather boat. Yeah, this one too. Yeah, there's 49 oxhides stretched over the hull of the boat. Yeah, it took a year to do it. It took 85 sailing days, we'd say. So what they did was they had read, we have this legend of St. Brendan, and there was loads of manuscripts written with the Brendan legend in it, but there was one called the Navigatio, which actually gave the route St. Brendan was supposed to have taken, and also the materials that he used to build the boat. So Tim Severin anyway decided to test and see if he could have done this voyage in the 6th century. And so, I mean, obviously there are modern materials on it. He wasn't completely suicidal. So he had he had radio contact and, you know, plastic coverings, a cook box, and compass and that. But it took them a year to do it. They spent the winter in Iceland, or the boat spent the winter in Iceland. So, and the route that they took, you'll see it there in the map anyway, it was an island hopping route, a very roundabout way. They stopped in the Orkneys and the Faroes, Iceland, Greenland and that, which is what St. Brendan is supposed to have done. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, because in the legend there's descriptions of all these mythical sort of islands where there's like the island of fire, where these men were throwing fire at St. Brendan and his monks, which could have been Iceland. I mean, it kind of corresponds with the actual reality of it. The Faroe.
Well, these are sheep, believe it or not. This is a breed, Iron Age sheep that they would have had. The Celts would have bred these. They don't have to be sheared because they lose their wool. You can see that some of them have lost their wool. They're very small. They're only about 2/3 the size of a regular sheep. And they are very much related to a goat. So that is very interesting. They can't tell these bones apart from a goat bones when they dig them up in an archaeological site. Now these are Iron Age cattle. They're called a Kerry. That's the name of the breed. They seem pretty positive that they are related to the Spanish fighting bull. Once again, proving my theory that there was Celts that came from Spain, came to Ireland. The bulls are very aggressive, can be vicious, but they were used dual purpose as meat and carrying loads and pulling wagons. So, and once again, they're smaller. They're about 2/3 the size of a regular beef or a regular cow. So give me a look. Nope, didn't even faze them. These could be